The Constitution of India, Preamble. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution.
Happy morning, students. I hope you all are doing good. Now it's extremely hot, so I request you all to drink a lot of water, liquids especially, because we may not be feeling hungry, and at that time we may not feel to have a solid food, but instead at least we will be drinking a lot of water. So eat as much as fruits possible and hydrate yourself to keep away from the heat, because at this point of time we may get dehydrated. So I request you all to keep yourself hydrated, drink enough, that is plenty of water to make yourself healthy. Okay, so we have come to the 7th chapter, equilibrium. Equilibrium, like before getting into the topic, I just want you all to recollect what we have learnt in the previous class, that is in 10th standard, previous standard. We have learnt about chemical equilibrium. Equilibrium, when you hear this word, I just want you to cite an example where you can see, like in circus, you can see there is a rope in the center and a man with a stick used to walk on the rope. So what he does is, it seems that he is taking lot more time to keep the next step, right? It is just to maintain a balance. So what happens if he is not able to maintain the balance? He may fall. You know what happens then? So that state we call it as equilibrium, a state of maintaining balance. To maintain that state of equilibrium, lot many actions actually goes. He is focusing on the gravity, he is getting pressure on himself, and he is to maintain all these and then has to walk along the rope. So this sort of maintaining a balance is called as equilibrium. That state we call it as a stable state, right? He is maintaining that throughout. That we call it as a stable state of equilibrium, a state of equilibrium. So here in equilibrium we have learnt last year, there are situations where the reactants change to products, products change to reactants, simultaneously both the side the reaction happens. We used to put this symbol, right? Double-headed arrow that represents a reversible sign, especially for equilibrium, because reversible reactions will undergo equilibrium. But equilibrium we call it as a dynamic state. It happens only in the closed vessel, because in open vessel what happens actually? Now let us assume there is a container, I have some water. Now when this water changes to vapor, there is no state of equilibrium. Only the liquid is changing to vapor phase, but I am not getting back the condensed form. So there is only forward reaction happening. These are my reactants which are changing to the products. There is no reversible reaction. But if it happens in a closed container, all these vapors will condense back to liquid. So what happens there? We call it as a reversible reaction, and there is a situation or there is a particular temperature at which the forward reaction becomes equal to the backward reaction. At that point of time we say equilibrium has achieved, and we call this equilibrium as a dynamic equilibrium. It is not static. What does static means? It is at rest. There is no activities happening. It is completely at rest, no motion. But when I say dynamic, at that particular time of equilibrium, there are so many activities that are happening inside the system. So that we call it as a dynamic state. There is a movement of molecules. Either the reactant change to product or the product will change to reactant. So that state we call it as dynamic. And we know, we have also learnt about the factors affecting the equilibrium, like concentration, temperature, pressure. You remember children, all these we were learning. What happens if the concentration is more, or what happens if the concentration comes down. So at this point, if you see, there is a phase transformation from solid to liquid, liquid to vapor, or vapor and solid. I put this reversible sign because both the side the reactions can occur. So at this point, if you see, when a liquid water changes to vapor, whenever the reaction is going towards the forward side, the concentration of the reactants decreases. And when the product is formed, the concentration of the product increases when it is a forward reaction. And at particular time, the equilibrium, once it is achieved, the forward and backward becomes equal. And that state we call it as a stable state. So that you can take an example of water changing to vapor. Similarly, for liquid to vapor is this: from solid to liquid, melting of an ice, freezing point. The freezing is from liquid to solid, melting is when an ice kept, it becomes water. So there is a state of equilibrium again when I keep this liquid in the refrigerator, it becomes ice. Solid to vapor, I can take ammonium chloride or I can take camphor. These change into vapor phase, sublimation, but there is no intermediate liquid state. So these are some of the examples where there is a phase transformation. Whenever we talk about phase transformation, there are three states, that is solid, liquid and gas, that is vapor phase. Now what happens, actually why are we studying this chemical equilibrium? We just want to know what is the extent that the reaction can happen. Because the rate of reaction, we know it depends on the nature of the reactant, that is the substances which are used in the reaction. The extent of the reaction can be categorized into three main. One is the reaction completes, that is you get the reactants getting converted into your products. That gives a whole reaction to be completed. There are situations where there are less products formed. So you have lot of reactants remaining left behind. And you have compatible products and reactants. Some of the reactants have changed into products, so the amount is not too high or too less. It is comparatively better. So these are the situations where we talk about chemical equilibrium. Now equilibrium also happens in dissolution. When I say solution, it is a mixture of solid or a solute in a solvent that makes a solution. So whenever we are going to talk about dissolution, I am going to give you a few examples and also the properties or the things that are involved in such phase transformations. Okay. Now we are going to see dissolution of gases and liquids, or if you say dissolution of solids and liquids. If you see, first we are going to see like sugar, when it is dissolved at an ordinary water, it takes time for the sugar to get dissolved. When you heat the water and you dissolve the sugar and stir it, the dissolution happens very fast. At higher temperature, we know temperature is a very important factor, it makes the solubility easy, right? So here we are going to make a saturated solution. What is a saturated solution? When a solute is dissolved in a solvent, in some time there is a situation where no more solute can be added. In a solution, when there is no more solute added to a solvent, we call such solution as saturated solution. And when you cool that solution, saturated solution, what happens? You get your solute, whichever you have dissolved in that solvent, getting crystallized out. It comes out or it separates out from the solution. So here I just want to say, in chemical equilibrium what happens is, rate of dissolution of sugar will be equal to the rate of crystallization of sugar. How much of a sugar I am going to dissolve it in the solvent to make a saturated solution, that much amount of sugar is going to get crystallized out. So that proportionality will be there, which is causing this chemical equilibrium. When you say gases in liquids, like soda bottle or Coke or Pepsi, anything that you take, when I open a soda bottle, what happens? Some effervescence comes out. Zzz, you get your gases coming out. What is that? It is carbon dioxide which is dissolved in the liquid. Solubility of carbon dioxide at a different temperature or pressure especially makes it that effervescence comes out immediately when it is exposed to the atmospheric pressure. As we already know that you will be studying in your 12th standard about Henry's law, where mass of a gas of a solvent, right, when it is dissolved, what happens? It is directly proportional to the pressure at any constant temperature. So that is M is proportional to P. And here I would say whenever solid and liquid are in equilibrium, it will be taking place at one particular temperature, the melting point or the freezing point when I say at the reverse reaction. When there is an equilibrium between the liquid and the vapor pressure becomes constant. The whole process happens, the vapor pressure of the substance is constant. When there is a dissolution of solid and liquid, the solubility becomes a constant. And when there is a dissolution of gases in liquids, the concentration of that particular gas will be proportional to the pressure. So here we are learning something about partial pressure. I have 2-3 components dissolved in one particular solvent. The partial pressure of A, B, C, which is dissolved in a solvent, will be partial pressure of A, partial pressure of B, partial pressure of C will be equal to the total pressure, which we have learnt as Dalton's law of partial pressure. The total pressure will be equal to sum of the individual pressures of the reactants. So these are the 4 main things which is given in your textbook. Just have to generalize the statement of all the solubility or all the phase transformations. The general characteristics of chemical equilibrium, which we have learnt in our 10th standard, it is attained in a closed vessel because reversible reactions are possible only in a closed container, and it is always dynamic because these forward and backward reactions, they take place simultaneously. Both the side the reaction occurs together. So there is a continuous process that is happening. So they are always active. Many activities are happening. So you call them as dynamic. And there are few parameters which depends on the physical process of a reaction. At a particular temperature, you can see the volume, the concentration, the pressure, few parameters which magnitude will be helping us to understand the extent to which the reaction is occurring. Such we call it as a general characteristics of chemical equilibrium. Now we will be focusing on chemical equilibrium, a dynamic equilibrium. Chemical equilibrium is a dynamic equilibrium. We know what is a chemical equilibrium. In a chemical reaction, the rate of forward reaction becomes equal to a rate of backward reaction. At that particular time, the concentration of the reactant and the product remains constant. There is no change in their concentration. So that is A plus B when it gives C plus D. When it reaches an equilibrium, concentration of AB will be equal to the concentration of CD. Now this was done by Haber's process. So Haber was a scientist who did an experiment where there was a formation of ammonia when nitrogen was combined with hydrogen to form 2 moles of ammonia. So what happens at the situation here? You can see at one particular time the composition mixture was remaining same. After the process has been started and it was analyzed, there was one particular temperature where the equilibrium has attained, and at that particular state the composition of both the reactants and the product was the same. That is, nitrogen and hydrogen, though it has been used to convert into ammonia, their concentration was the same, which is being understood that though the nitrogen and hydrogen were changed into ammonia, it was the backward reaction taking place simultaneously where ammonia was giving nitrogen and hydrogen back. So here he did an experiment. What he did, instead of hydrogen, he took deuterium, that is D2, an isotope of hydrogen. So that it forms not ammonia but it was forming ND3. So what did he analyze? After the same experiment was carried out, N2 plus 3D2 giving 2 ND3. After some time again the composition was analyzed. Again he came to know that there was no change in the composition. That is, the concentration of the reactant and the product were remaining same. So any reactant or any product I take, there are certain conditions, a state where there is a chemical equilibrium reached, where my forward reaction becomes equal to my backward reaction. So here he want to confirm that So he mixed nitrogen, hydrogen, ammonia with N2, D2 and ND3, and he just kept away for a while. Later he understood that the concentration of ammonia is same as before. Whatever was there before mixing, the same concentration was there even after mixing. So this he want to analyze using a mass spectrometer. There he came to know that all ammonia forms were formed when it was mixed with deuterium with NH3, NH2D, NHD2, ND3. What does it mean? Deuterium was not staying alone. It could combine with nitrogen and form ammonia products. So then he came to understand or finalized that reactions are taking place simultaneously, continuously. The reactants were trying to change into products and the products were trying to change back into reactants. If the reaction would have stopped anywhere and we will not be getting these products, there will be no isotopes found. But here there are isotopes which are formed with nitrogen only because the reactions are continuously progressing. So this was a state of chemical equilibrium. So we have seen till the mass spectrometer, that is how a chemical equilibrium, that is it is called as a dynamic equilibrium, was determined. And today we are here to see about the equilibrium constant and how does an equilibrium constant help us to calculate the values that are happening, the reaction that is happening in a reaction. Now let us see, now we will consider a reaction where we have A plus B gives C plus D. Children, I don't want you to write this in your notebook now. You can refer your textbook, it's page number 199. You can see the reaction A plus B. These are the reactants which react to give product C and D. Now this is a balanced chemical equation. Now there we are introducing a constant which we call it as Kc, where Kc is called as an equilibrium constant. Now that equilibrium constant gives us the correct value of the reaction that is happening. Now we have written here Kc is equal to the product of the concentration of C and D, that is the products, divided by the product of the concentration of the reactants A and B. So that is what is given there. Now Kc is an equilibrium constant, and what happens, this equilibrium constant value should be the same for whatever concentrations it is changing with respect to the product and the reactant. That is what is understood from this expression Kc is equal to C into D by A by B, A into B. Now this equilibrium equation, now this equation is also called as law of mass action because we were calculating the active mass of the components. We were not focusing on the concentration, rather in the beginning in chemistry we were focusing only on their mass. Now let us going to consider a simple reaction where we have H2 and I2 gives 2 molecules of HI. Please refer your textbook, children. 1 mole of H2 combines with 1 mole of I2 to give 2 mole of HI. Now these experiments were done consequently, where you can see in the first 4 experiments H2 and I2 were in the reaction vessel, and in the 4th and 5th experiment only HI was considered. But then what happened after the experiments were proceeded, we calculated the value of I2 and also HI. What happened later, we took a data which was given in the table to you in page number 199. From that it is evident that the first 4 experiments revealed that the number of moles of dihydrogen reacted is equal to number of moles of iodine reacted, which is equal to half the number of moles of HI formed. So with that we consider that H2 equal to I2, which will be the moles, that is half of the HI. However, how much ever HI is formed, the half of H2 and I2 are formed in the reaction. So instead we will write HI by H2 by I2, where HI is the product and H2 by I2 is the concentration of the reactant. Now when Kc was formed, this data was collected and you can see the data which is given in the table to you. Can you see the data, children? the first six experiment where the first 4 only H2 and I2 were considered, so HI is 0, and the last 2 experiment we considered the HI, and that time H2 and I2 were not considered. So the initial concentration and the equilibrium concentration is given, and then from there you can see it is half of what is obtained in the HI, that is the concentration of hydrogen and iodine will be half of the concentration of hydrogen iodide that is formed in the product. So what it is informing us about is there is something wrong in the formula of the equilibrium constant. Instead of writing HI by H2 into I2, we should write, since it is 2HI, it is half of the product that is formed, the power of the product HI should be written on the top, that is twice the concentration of HI divided by H2 into I2. So when that was considered, that was giving us the, you can see the second one, 2 columns are given to you, experiment number 1, and here you can see the first column with different values of Kc, and in the second column you can see the same constant values when the concentration of HI is doubled. So this is called as the equilibrium constant. Now you can see in this expression the power of the concentration of reactants and products is equal to the stoichiometric coefficient. What is stoichiometry? The number of moles of reactants and products they take part in a reaction. So in HI you can see it is 2HI, so we need to raise the power of 2 in the concentration of HI. So the correct equation is written here, you can see HI to the power of square by H2 into I2. So that gives the correct equilibrium constant value. Now what is mentioned here, at a given temperature, the product concentration of the reaction products raised to the respective stoichiometry. So anytime when you are doing it, you have to raise it to the power of its concentration so that you get the correct constant values. If 2 moles of HI are there, HI to the power of 2. If 3 moles are there, HI to the power of 3. So you should be very careful in writing the stoichiometric coefficient. Now what happens if this is a reversible reaction? If it's a reversible reaction, we assume the decomposition of HI. You can see on the right expression 7.7. Kc will be now, the product will be my reactant and the reactant will be my product. So H2 into I2 divided by HI the power of square, which is equal to 1 by X. If X is equal to Kc, now K dash Z will be the reciprocal, that is the inverse of Kc, which is 1 by X, that is 1 by Kc. So that is how we calculate for a reverse reaction. So there I have highlighted for you, equilibrium constant for the reverse reaction is the inverse of the equilibrium constant for a reaction in the forward direction. In the forward direction, whatever equilibrium constant value I get, the reverse of which, that is the inverse of it, will be the equilibrium constant for the reverse reaction, that is the reaction taking place in the opposite direction. Okay, now, so there you get a data which is giving us example, A molecules of A reacts with B molecules of B to give C molecules of C plus D molecules of D, which is my Kc. Now assume the reaction taking place in the reverse direction, C molecules of C plus D molecules of D gives A molecules of A plus B molecules of B. So now K dash C will be the reciprocal inverse of Kc. So let us now in general, Na molecules of A plus Nb molecules of B gives Nc molecules of C plus Nd molecules of D. So K double dash C will be Kc to the power of N. N is the stoichiometric coefficient where N moles are being taken into consideration. Now we are going to see something which is called as homogeneous equilibria. Children, we have learned what is homogeneous. Homogeneous means having same composition. That is, the reactants and the products are considered to be in the same phase. If it's liquid, it is liquid. If it is gaseous, it is gaseous. So here I am going to consider where the reactions are taking place in the gaseous state. So let us consider Haber's process, N2 plus 3H2 giving 2 ammonia. Now here you can see ethyl acetate plus water giving acetic acid plus ethanol, and any other reactions we can see all the reactants and the products are in the same phase. Either they are in the solid phase, or they are in the liquid phase, or they are in the gaseous phase. Such an equilibria we call it as homogeneous equilibria. Equilibrium constant in gaseous system. How do we consider that? Now equilibrium system gives that in terms we use a symbol Kc. Now we are going to involve the equilibrium constant in terms of partial pressure. Now why this partial pressure is coming? We are going to see that. The ideal equation we already studied in states of matter, PV is equal to nRT, where P, the pressure, will be N by V RT. Here P is the pressure PA, N is the number of moles of the gas, V is the volume given in m cube, and that is P is in Pascal. Okay, PA refers to Pascal, and T is the temperature in Kelvin. So what is going to happen now to this equation? You can see, children, N by V is the concentration which is expressed in mole per meter cube. N is the number of moles, volume V is the meter cube. Now if concentration C is mole per liter or mole per decimeter cube, and P is in bar, that is the pressure expressed in bar, then P is equal to CRT, because N by V is the concentration. So instead of N by V RT, I am going to put CRT. Now what is P? P is equal to the gas into RT, where R is equal to the gas constant, which is the unit given to you there. So at constant pressure, the pressure of a gas is directly proportional to its concentration. You will be studying about this even in your +2 standard, Henry's law. The pressure of a gas is directly proportional to the concentration. Now very important, consider the equation H2 plus I2 gives to HI. So how I will write my equilibrium constant? The power of the concentration divided by product of the concentration of the reactants, which I have written. Now I am going to write this in terms of pressure. So here Kc is equal to Phi, pressure of Hi to the power square divided by pressure of H2 into pressure of I2. Now what is pressure of Hi? Hi RT. Now what is pressure of I2? I2 RT. What is pressure of H2? H2 RT. Now what happens here? Therefore now I am going to substitute all this. Instead of Hi, H2 and I2, I am going to use these equations. So what I get? Hi square RT square by H2 RT into I2 RT. All the RTs get cancelled. On the numerator I have RT square, denominator I have 2 RT, both get cancelled each other. So only Hi square by H2 and I2 is remaining, which is nothing but my Kc. So now I have come to a conclusion that Kp is equal to Kc. What is Kc? Equilibrium constant. What is Kp? Equilibrium constant at a pressure. So both equilibrium constants are equal. That shows Kp is equal to Kc. Now we are going to consider one more equation where N2 plus 3H2 give 2NH3. Now here what happens? Pressure of ammonia, the power of square, by pressure of N2 into pressure of hydrogen, the cube, because it is 3 hydrogen. So now substitute with your RT, the same what we did for H2 and I2. What is going to happen? Now you will see here NH3 square RT square N2 H2. So now RT1 will be remaining, that RT square you take it to the numerator, it will be Kc RT minus 2, because 2 RTs are remaining at the bottom. Because for hydrogen 3 RTs are there, and for nitrogen 1 RT, total 4, and on the top you have 2. 2 get cancelled, remaining 2 go to the numerator as minus 2. So Kp will be equal to Kc into RT power minus 2. So for general equation, how can I write? I can write it as Kp is equal to pressure of the C, that is the product, to the power of C, which is the stoichiometric coefficient, into pressure of D to the power of D divided by pressure of A to the power of A by pressure of B to the power of B. Now what happens there? If you just multiply with RT, C plus D and A plus B. What is C plus D? Stoichiometric coefficient of product plus the other product. And here A plus B is stoichiometric coefficient of the reactants. So when you solve it, you get Kp is equal to Kc RT power del N, where del N is equal to the number of moles of product minus number of moles of reactants. So that is what is important for Kp. We have seen till homogeneous equilibrium in the last class. So now we are going to focus on heterogeneous equilibrium. In heterogeneous equilibrium, it talks about the substances which are in the different phases. Like in homogeneous equilibrium, we were focusing where the reactants and the products are in the same phase. Like if the reactant is in solid, the products are also in the solid. The reactants is in liquid, the products are also in the liquid state. But here we are going to see something different where we have both liquid and the gaseous phase involved, which means there are different phases which are taking part in the same reaction. Now the first example where you can see liquid water changing into its vapor form, and the vapor again condenses back into the liquid. Now here in heterogeneous equilibria, it happens only with pure solid and liquid cases, where in the last class we were seeing the equilibrium constant is the product of the concentration of the products divided by the product of the concentration of the reactants. So here when I say in that case the molar concentration of the pure solid and liquid will always be the constant, which it means if the substance is denoted by X symbol, then the concentration of the substance in the solid form and the concentration of the substance in the liquid form will be a constant, which means it is not considered into the equilibrium constant formula or the expression. But in that case, when the substance is in gaseous form or in aqueous form, it is not to be constant, it varies at different temperature. Now if you see this example where there is a decomposition of calcium carbonate we know it's called as limestone, will be decomposing to form calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. So what happens here? I have represented calcium carbonate as solid, calcium oxide also is being in solid state, and carbon dioxide evolves out, which is in gaseous form. So how do I write the expression for equilibrium constant? We write the product of the concentration of the products divided by the reactants. So here in this case, we know this is a solid, this is also a solid, so that is going to be a constant, we don't consider it, and so the equilibrium constant will be the concentration of only the carbon dioxide. So at constant pressure, the equilibrium constant will be the pressure exerted by the carbon dioxide. So this is a rare case where we find out in heterogeneous equilibrium. Different examples are also given in your textbook. Now if you see what are the applications of equilibrium constant, the first and the foremost one is expression for equilibrium constant is applicable only when the concentration of the reactants and the products, they have attained a constant value. See, what is equilibrium? Equilibrium is a stable state where when I say the concentration of the reactant and the concentration of the product remains the same. That's why we call that as a dynamic equilibrium. So only in that particular state the equilibrium constant is applicable. The value of the equilibrium constant is independent on the initial concentration. Why is that so? Because during the initial concentration we are not sure how much extent or whether the products is formed completely or whether the reactants have been used or is there any other reactant that is remaining in the reaction. So equilibrium constant is temperature dependent and having only one unique value for one particular reaction. You cannot write the same equilibrium constant value for all the reactions. It depends on the temperature, and temperature is the only factor that governs the equilibrium constant. And equilibrium constant for the reverse reaction will be what? It is the inverse of the forward reaction. And the equilibrium constant is also related to the corresponding reaction whose equation is obtained by either dividing or multiplying the stoichiometric coefficient, because we know if A molecules of A, I told you A molecules of A react with B molecules of B to give C molecules of C plus D molecules of D. So here we multiply the concentration of the products divided by the concentration of the reactants and raising to the power of the stoichiometric coefficient. Here stoichiometric coefficient represents the number of moles of reactants and the products that are involved in a particular chemical reaction. Now we will learn the three important factors which have been useful by the equilibrium constant. One is to predict the extent of a reaction, then to predict the direction of the reaction, and also calculating the equilibrium concentration. So we are going to learn to what extent, because equilibrium constant do not depend on the rate of the reaction. What do you mean by rate? The rate of the reaction is nothing but the speed, how fast the reaction can happen. So we are not going to focus on how fast the reaction is happening. We are going to see what is the extent in the sense whether the reactants are used up completely, or am I getting a reactants which are remained in the reaction. So this is what is predicting the extent of the reaction. And then we are going to learn about predicting the direction of the reaction, whether the reaction is taking place in the forward direction or in the backward direction, that is whether it is a reversible direction. Then we are going to learn about calculating the equilibrium concentration. So let us learn the first one, predicting the extent of the reaction. Through equilibrium constant, we are going to learn about predicting the extent of the reaction, predicting the direction of the reaction. What do you mean by extent? Extent to which I said whether the products are going to predominate or whether the reactants are going to be formed a lot. So that is what is extent of the reaction. Now here there has been given a scale of value. In page number 206 you can see a green arrow mark which is written with the value of equilibrium constant. So we know any reaction that is taking place, their concentration values will be given to us. With that we can find out the value of Kc, because Kc is the product of the concentration of products divided by product of the concentration of reactant. Now once we solve the given reaction, if the Kc value is large, if it is big enough or higher value of Kc, then it is going to be in the forward direction, or it is going to be the reaction where there are more number of products which is going to predominate. So which means that it is going to be in the forward direction. The next one is, if the equilibrium constant is very less, having a very less value, for the given equation you can see nitrogen combining with oxygen to form nitric oxide. In that equation the value of Kc is very low. So in such situation what happens, the extent is such that the reactants will predominate, that is the products will try to come back and form the reactants, and there will be a lot of reactants formed in the reaction. And the last case is where the Kc value is in between 10 to the power of minus 3 to 10 power 3. In such case, the reaction has attained equilibrium, which means there are some appreciable amount of reactants and products that are remaining in the reaction. So that shows the extent of reaction, whether the reactants have completely formed into products or products have completely formed into reactants. In this case, they are in equilibrium, that is appreciable amount of reactants and the products are sustained in the equilibrium state. Next, we are going to focus on the direction of the reaction. We know there are only two possible directions. One is in the forward direction where the reactants changes to the product, and the second one is a backward direction where the products get back into the reactants. So there we are going to define a new term which is called as reaction quotient. What is reaction quotient? In that particular reaction, what is the amount of the equilibrium constant, just like Kc, we are going to compare it with the same formula. A molecules of A with B molecules of B give C molecules of C and D molecules of D, where A, B, C, D, small letters A, B, C, D are the stoichiometric coefficient. So here Q can be find out by the product of the concentration of the products divided by the product of the concentration of reactants. Given this concentration, you will be getting the value of Qc, which is the reaction quotient. Kc will be given to us in the question. So if the Qc value is greater than Kc, then it is going to be the reactants which is going to be predominated. That is, it is going to be in the backward direction. And if the Qc value is less than Kc, then it is going to be in the forward direction. What is Qc? Qc is the reaction quotient. If it is going to be less, then the products are going to predominate. Both the values becomes equal, it is going to attain an equilibrium mixture. Now we'll see 2-3 examples where you can see here what happens to the reaction coefficient, right? See, you can see in page number 206 children, with H2 plus I2 giving 2 HI. Kc value is given to us, Qc value comes out to be 8 and Kc value is 57, which is greater than Qc. So if the Kc value is greater, we know what happens, it takes place in the forward direction because Qc value is very less when compared to that of Kc. So such examples are given. This graph is going to be very useful for you, where in the first graph you can see Qc green is less than Kc blue, so it is going to be in the forward. Second one is equilibrium and the last one is going to be a backward direction. Calculating equilibrium constant, we are going to do it when we come here, how we are going to solve the problems, each and every one. Now we are going to see how Kc is going to be related with Gibbs free energy. To focus on the relation between equilibrium constant, reaction quotient and Gibbs free energy. Because we know equilibrium constant do not depend on the rate of the reaction, and in thermodynamics we have learned that it is directly related to Gibbs free energy. That is, we have also learnt about spontaneity and how does the reaction takes place spontaneously, right? So here, if the value of Gibbs free energy del G becomes negative, the reaction is highly spontaneous, the reaction takes place without any initiation, so it is a forward reaction. Now if del G is going to be positive, then the reaction is non-spontaneous and I can say the products will change back into reactants. What if del G becomes 0? If the value of del G becomes 0, it is highly equilibrium. Children, they don't allow you to make you to derive all this, but you should be remembering, because a negative value of del G is a spontaneous reaction, reactants will change to products. If del G becomes positive, it's non-spontaneous, products change back to reactants, and if it is going to be 0, it is highly in equilibrium. Now we have learnt a formula, well, del G is equal to del G naught plus RT ln Q, where Q is a reaction quotient. But here we know Q will be equal to Kc if it's going to be in equilibrium. Substitute the value of Q here, so the whole formula expression becomes equal to 0. Del G naught will be equal to RT ln K. So I take ln K, the equilibrium constant, on the other side. Taking anti-log, I get del G naught e power minus del G naught by RT. So here, if del G naught value is less than 0, the whole becomes positive, K value will be greater than 1, spontaneous reaction. And here, if the value of del G naught is less than 1, the whole value becomes negative, K will be equal to less than 1, which is again non-spontaneous. So these are the things that are related with Gibbs free energy, and here we are going to study about the factors affecting equilibrium. We have learnt about Le Chatelier's principle, children. If you remember, any reaction that is taking place in a situation where you have a particular concentration, temperature, pressure that is governing a set of reaction. In that situation, if there is a small change in the pressure, concentration or temperature, the system will readjust itself to nullify the change that is happening in a reaction. So here we are going to see about the factors that are affecting it. We are going to learn about concentration, pressure, temperature, catalyst and effect of inert gas. So all these 5 are going to help us. What effect does it implies on a chemical equation? Okay, now we are going to see about Le Chatelier's principle. The first one is concentration. So let's assume a situation where we have nitrogen combines with 3 hydrogen to form 2 ammonia. So what happens in this situation? Now this is in Haber's process where nitrogen combines with hydrogen to form ammonia. Now effect of concentration. Assume if I am going to add more nitrogen. If I am going to add more nitrogen, the concentration of nitrogen increases. So what the system is going to do? This chemical system is going to readjust itself. It's going to adjust in such a way that the increased amount of nitrogen is going to get consumed. How it's going to get consumed? It can be used so that will be giving us a product. So what happens? The system will be moving in the forward direction where we get more amount of ammonia that is formed in the reaction. So whenever the concentration of the reactant is increased, you get more products, the system will be shifting towards the forward direction. I was telling you, in nitrogen or hydrogen, any one of the reactant concentration is increased, more amount of product will be obtained. If the concentration of product increases, what happens? That product concentration has to be decreased. You need to consume it so that the concentration becomes less, so that it can reach an equilibrium, a stable state. So in that situation, the system will be moving in the reverse direction, that is in the backward direction. Now what happens with pressure? In 10th standard we have learned, here in the reactants, if you see, 4 moles of the reactants react to give 2 moles of the product. So as we know, when the pressure increases, the volume decreases, and as the number of molecules also decreases. So whenever there is an increase in the pressure, the system will try to move in the direction where there are less number of molecules. So system will be moving towards the forward direction. Or what happens if the pressure decreases? When the pressure decreases, the system has to move in the direction where there are more number of moles. So definitely the system will be moving in the backward direction. That is, the more amount of nitrogen and hydrogen will be formed. That's why children, if you remember, this always takes place at low temperature and high pressure conditions, because at high pressure only more ammonia will be formed, because we are focused on the production of ammonia. So if you see, Haber's process will be taking place only at a low pressure condition. Now what temperature? What happens? Let's assume nitrogen combines with hydrogen to form ammonia and a large amount of heat is being evolved. Now in this case, if I am going to increase the temperature, the system has to readjust so that the temperature decreases. So that much temperature has to be absorbed. So what happens on the product side, you can see there is an absorption of heat. The forward direction is exo and the backward is endo. So when the system's temperature increases, system has to decrease the temperature by absorbing the heat, so that will take place in the backward direction. Now if the temperature is decreased, we need to give more amount of heat to increase the temperature. So it will be in the exothermic direction, that is the forward direction. Next one is inert gas. Inert, something that does not react at all. When we say chemically inert, it is inactive, it does not react at all. So what happens at that situation? There is no change in the equilibrium, because the inert gas is not reacting at all in the reaction. Effect of catalyst is same as that of an inert gas. A catalyst role is to increase the rate of reaction either in the forward direction or in the backward direction without itself consumed. So in that situation, it does not have any impact in the chemical equilibrium, because positive or a negative catalyst, whatever role it plays, it takes place in the same manner in both the direction. So with this, we are going to stop the class. With the effect, I will be including the videos. Next we will focus on acid, bases and salt, Arrhenius theory in the next class. Thank you children, have a great day.